want to thank Alan from the Pacific Northwest, Centralia, Washington, for joining us today. We are honored that you would share your story. It's touched us to the core, and I know that it will touch others as well.
Alan, it's been such a joy to get to know you and your family. I think we met in 1996. Oh, yeah. And had you guys over to our house for dinner with your family. And then you and I started hanging out in our men's Tuesday night group. And it was just really remarkable what the Lord has done in our lives and your guys' life. And so I think we've known each other for 24 years or something like that. But today we want to talk about something that's really, really close to your heart. And if you can, just try to help people understand, this has to do with the death of your son, Austin. And I believe it was the fateful night in August of 2006, you probably got a call. Pick us up where you got that call.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Ron. 26 August 2006. It's a day I'll never forget. I got a call around roughly 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was the sheriff's department from Austin, Texas, and they had told me that my son had been murdered. And it just sucked all of the breath out of me. And I fell to the floor, and the only thing I could do was ask God, why? Why would he allow this to happen? It's not supposed to be this way. A father is supposed to go before his son. It's not supposed to be the other way around. And I was just at a word of loss. I was, no, you couldn't comfort me. I just needed to process what was going on. And that was my thought process. Yeah.
So is there a way for you to tell about how Austin died?
Yeah, so what had happened was he was out with some friends, or so-called friends, that night, and they robbed him. They held a gun at his head, and he was with his girlfriend, and she told the investigators that she don't think that they would have shot him, but my son is kind of like me. He's stubborn, and he wasn't going to be embarrassed, and they killed him. They took his vehicle, and they took all of his possessions, and then they left. And these were people who he was his so-called friends, his acquaintances.
Wow.
It was three guys.
Can you just back up just a little bit and tell us a little bit about us? Tell us about who he was and what he meant to you and what you loved about him.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not perfect. I made a lot of mistakes in life. Austin was my son from my first marriage. I divorced his mother. Well, we divorced. This is before I was truly walking with God, and I understood what was a man's responsibility. But Austin, because of this, I really wanted my son to grow, not to be like I was, but to be like God wanted him to be. So we communicated all the time. He was a fun-loving kid. You've met him. We brought him down to Washington, and we would just have a blast. And he really needed that male influence in his life. And I'm thinking, I had just gotten back from Okinawa, Japan, when this happened. I just retired. And we had planned on bringing him down that summer as soon as we moved back into our house. So, he was he was energetic. He was very athletic. He loved to fish. He was just like me. And when we were together, it was just, I don't know, it was amazing. And I had so many hopes for just him and I creating a future a life together, and it was just all just taken away that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for our viewers, Alan served in the United States Army for how many years?
23 years.
23 years. And Austin was your firstborn,
Yeah.
your son.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So Austin was 18. He was out hanging out with some so-called friends,
Mhm.
and things went bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, they went extremely bad.
Yeah. So Alan, I want to ask you a question. How did you know you needed to forgive? What was being played out in your life
Mhm.
to where you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had to forgive? I need to forgive.
You know, Ron, as I told you the night I received the call and I fell to the floor and I questioned God, forgiveness never entered into my mind at that point. I struggled. I struggled. Um, but I believed in God. My faith is very strong. And you know, and as Christians, we always talk about forgiveness, but it's hard to do. It was very hard to do. But again, to answer your question, I realized that I had to forgive, right? Because this is what God required when I was at my son's celebration for life ceremony. And I and my wife, Bev, we sat there and we looked around the room, and this was supposed to be a celebration for life, but nobody was celebrating. Everybody was just there. And then family members and friends and his schoolmates, they got up and started talking about him. But as they spoke of him, they would talk about the good times that they had, but it would end in anger.
Oh, wow.
Oh. Oh.
It would end in anger. And as I watched this, I realized that this was the very same anger that took his life.
Mm.
Wow.
So I vowed to God that I wasn't going to allow this anger to take my life
Mm.
and to stop me from following him. You know, I noticed that they weren't celebrating, and I was not going to let that anger uh, that was in that room that day take my life because, you know, I am a believer, a child of God. And that means the world to me. So I had to forgive.
So
Uh,
just to help our viewers, Alan, the heart-wrenching 4 o'clock in the morning on August 28th, 2006.
26.
26.
I'm sorry, August 26th, 2006. How many days or weeks was it before you had Austin's life celebration, his memorial?
It was actually, it was the following weekend. It was just the next
Wow.
weekend.
So you
Wow.
got to see, obviously, anger is a response.
Right.
Hearts are hurting.
Mhm.
They've lost a friend, they've lost a son, they've lost a grandson, they've lost a classmate. Obviously, with loss and pain, anger is just a response to what's going on in their environment. But like all of us, anger's in our heart, right? Isn't it? Isn't it?
It is. And
Anger is in our, it's in our mind, it's in our whole system. And so I'm just, I'm just standing in awe, or sitting in awe, I should say, that this has only been about a week, and you're already seeing this kind of transformation take place in your heart, Alan, in a
That's
week.
astounding. That is astounding that you would even have the composure in your own grief and your own sorrow to see what is happening around you at your own son's celebration of life service. That is miraculous that you could see that element so quickly.
So pick up after the celebration service, you came back to Washington. You were down in Texas for Austin service. You came back to Washington. What was going on in your heart after the celebration of life and upon getting back to your own environment and thinking through what just took place in your daddy's heart?
So here's the thing. But first of all, um, it it wasn't me. There's absolutely, as I think back on this process, it wasn't me. I was not willing and ready to forgive just yet. It was not me. It was
Mhm.
something greater than me. I don't take this the wrong way, but I made the mistake of asking God, strengthen me, God, through this process. Help me through this process. And the reason I say I made the mistake is because you need to be careful what you ask God for, because he will give it to you.
True
Yes, for
story.
sure.
I just did not know it was going to come that quickly, and that
Yeah.
would be the catalyst to lead me into forgiveness. So as I came back to Washington, and everyone was really, they were, consoling me, and you know, it's still a hard process. Just as everyone keeps, it's like a constant remembering, reminder of what's happening, and I'm trying to figure out a way to be strong and to not move on, because you can't move on for something like this, but to be able to live with it. Um, so I had to really do a soul searching at that point in time, and I told you, I had, when I was in Austin, I asked God to strengthen me and to use me um, in this. I said, please do not let my son's death go in vain.
Mhm.
And like I said, be careful what you ask for, because I came back and God had put in my heart that there are more lost people out there. There are more people like the people who took my son. They may not have committed murder, but in Jesus's eyes, if you just look at your brother in anger and talk to him in anger, you've already committed murder. So I just felt that God wanted me to further my life for him and totally for him. So I went into the ministry. Um, I learned that my son's death, like I said, is not in vain. He allowed me to understand the importance of people, just loving people. And as I see all of this hatred going on today, and the chance of Black Life Matters, and then you have people coming back saying all life matters and this and that. I say we all need to stop and take a look from God's eyes, right? And
Yeah.
realize that life matters, period.
Yeah.
Period. So, this is as heart wrenching as this has been, and such a tragic. Um, God has been graceful in this whole process, and while I don't wish this on anyone to grow or learn,
Mhm.
I have accepted it
Mhm.
as the will of God.
Alan, as we talk about the death of your son, Austin, in Austin, Texas,
Mhm.
did you follow the capture, prosecution, and incarceration of the people who took Austin's life?
Mhm.
Yeah, actually, I did. Um, and well, not just that I did. No one in Austin. I got called from lawyers who I went to high school with, and it was just everybody's telling me what's going on, and these guys, they got 10 years. Two got 10 years. One got 12, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and but that still wasn't enough for me. And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about the time that they received. I'm just talking about the thought process that they're in prison. Okay, now it's done. Uh, and the reason I say that is because later on, that when I was back in Washington State, I found myself on the floor one night, and I was crying out to the Lord. And I said, Father, while I understand that my son's life may not have meant much to them.
Mhm.
I understand that these men's lives and every life means everything to you. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't have given your only son for us. So I ask God to spare these men.
Mm.
Pray that they come to know him as their Lord and Savior. This is how I know that I have truly forgiven them.
That's right.
Mhm.
Great point. Hey everyone, Alan has even more insights to share on a concluding second video that you'll see down below. Please help us out by hitting the thumbs up button and the red subscribe button. And by the way, if you have a forgiveness story that you'd like to share, or you know of somebody who's done the heavy lifting of forgiveness, please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to contact you, hear your story, and see what we can do to get that story out on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening on Forgiveness Road.